Welcome to the 4th episode of My Life with MS. If you've joined me since the beginning, thank you so much for following along. Please subscribe to my podcast because there's so much more to my story and you do not want to miss it. I want to mention that this podcast is not medical advice and that you should seek medical advice from your medical professional team. This podcast is strictly my opinion and my experiences with multiple sclerosis. So after pregnancy, any new mom can relate. The newborn stage is crazy. You're not sleeping. For me, I was on maternity leave, so that was wonderful. I was able to, not deal with work for a little bit. And having my son was overall just such a blessing. And we had a really good newborn stage. And then around 3 months, he started sleeping through the night. I know a lot of people are going to hate on me for that. I don't know what I did to promote this, but that boy slept 12 hours when he turned 3 months old, and my life has not been the same. He sleeps so good to this day. I know maybe his teenage years will be awful. I don't know, but that baby slept so good, so well since he was 3 months old. I am so sorry to all the other moms out there who have terrible situations. That was another blessing in itself because it allowed me to sleep, and I was able to really focus on my health even more. About 3 months, maybe 3 to 4 months after I gave birth, that was when I went in for a post-pregnancy MRI. Now, this is a reminder that I had a scheduled MRI at my 8th month mark when I was pregnant, and that was a routine MRI. So I walked out of that one because that was a terrible experience. So this MRI, it probably had been about a full year since my last MRI. So when I got these scanned results back, it was not good news. It showed a lot of progression, and it showed 3 active lesions. And that's not good news across the board, right? However, the quote-unquote a lot of progression, we don't know if that was a year ago, we don't know if that was during pregnancy, or if it was post-pregnancy. I do believe that I had a post-pregnancy flare about around that 3-month mark, because for me, I can feel it coming on, and I can feel that I'm in a flare when I get extreme brain fog. And granted, it could have been because I have a newborn, and I was dealing with the newborn stage, but I had severe brain fog. I had the optic neuritis that came back. I had full-blown numbness and tingling. And then I developed like a stutter. So when I would talk, I was stuttering a lot. That stutter does come back from time to time. But I do feel like I had a post-pregnancy flare. And I did get steroids for that actually at that time. This MRI scan, I kind of expected there to be something. So we went through that, and then we had to talk about treatments. And I still strongly did not want to get back on Ocrevus. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it even more now because now I have a baby to take care of. I can't be sick all the time and take care of this baby. That just wasn't in the cards for me. And again, my prayer life has grown so much. And so I took it to God and I was like, show me what I'm supposed to do. Tell me, should I do Ocrevus again or not? And I was very heavily convicted to not do treatment again. So then at my appointment, I really had to stand up for myself and talk to the neurologist and say, look, I do not want to do treatment again. Allow me some time for my body to just take a break. I think that's what I asked for. I asked for a break. It's kind of like a bad relationship. I didn't fully break up with her and the neurologist, but I wanted to go on a break. So that's what I went with. Again, still so scared and I didn't want to stir up any feathers. She was pushing really hard for me to get back on Ocrevus to the point where it was annoying. After I decided to not go back onto Ocrevus, that's when I took a turn. I took a turn in learning what is it about my body that has so much inflammation? What is it about me that causes MS to trigger? So I started diving down that road. So I'm going to take a step back. When I was diagnosed and my world was coming to an end, I had a friend at work who reached out. That friend had a father who was diagnosed with MS and was doing really, really well. And he was not doing any treatment. He actually was able to get it under control by using diet and lifestyle changes and all of that. And, we arranged for a phone call and we had a wonderful call. And this was like before I decided doing any treatments. We had a wonderful phone call and he told me a few books to get. So way back then, I got those books. Never read them. They sat on the shelf, and then I went through all the horrible treatment things that I'm telling you about. So fast forward to me telling the neurologist I didn't want to do treatment. I picked up that book. That book is called Eat Dirt by Josh Axe. I read that book cover to cover. It was extremely informative and interesting, and I felt that everything this book talked about is what I need to do. God's telling me not to do treatment. I picked up this book that someone gave me years ago where I could have avoided all of this completely if I just read it. And I start reading this book and it starts going through all the different things that the human body needs to do to basically be healthy. Removing toxins from the body, implementing nutritious options, lifestyle changes, everything. Not only that, but it talks about the gut. It talks about your digestive system and the important role that it plays in your overall health. And that's the part that I really clung to. I was like, I need to heal my gut. I know it. I know that before I was diagnosed, I had a very terrible relationship with food. I was always eating and overeating and overindulging, and I was obsessed with sweets. And I don't know how my metabolism kept up with me, but I was just always snacking and eating garbage food. In college, very specifically in college, I remember I didn't make any homemade meals because my oven was clean when I moved in and it was clean when I moved out. And that's a very embarrassing part of my history, but that's very true. I ate out all the time. And when I ate out, it was usually cheap Taco Bell, McDonald's, Wendy's. It was cheap food that I had access to. And I know for a fact that my health was at its absolute lowest during my college years because I wasn't being nutritious. I wasn't eating for nutrition at all. So I knew that was a problem. And after reading Eat Dirt, I understood how much damage that possibly could have had on my stomach. So then that opened the door into me learning everything I could learn about detoxing my body. And then I slowly went through this process. And right away, the first thing I did was I did a food intolerance test from everlywell.com. I will put that link in the description. I think it was Black Friday or something, and I got their testing kit half off, whatever the deal was at Black Friday time, because it is pretty expensive. But I was curious, what am I eating every single day that is causing me inflammation? My whole mantra, I don't want to say mantra, but my whole goal was to reduce the inflammation in my body. And also, I had to prove to my neurologist that I could do this on my own and not with treatment. How do I make multiple sclerosis stable without treatment? And I knew I had to prove that to the doctor. My first step was reading that book, Eat Dirt. My second step was discovering what I was intolerant to, so I understood what food I can and cannot eat. But what I learned about my body is that I was heavily intolerant to the milk protein, so I could no longer have dairy. On top of that, I was intolerant to gluten. And on top of that, I was intolerant to wheat, which is a part of all of that. So I knew from that point forward that I had to cut those things out. And I did. I was very successful in cutting out those three things as much as humanly possible. The only few cheats that I had was maybe some cheese and or maybe some ranch, because I absolutely love ranch. But I knew I had to make some changes, so I cut those out. The next step that I did, and this is not just from the book. This is from the book. This is from things I'm reading online. This is from studies that I've been reading and researching online. This is also from multiple Facebook groups where people have healed themselves naturally and studying and learning everything that they're doing. So cutting out the intolerances was one of my steps. And then starting a vitamin regimen. My vitamin D was so low when I was diagnosed. My vitamin D was 9. So I knew I needed to start taking vitamin D. So I started taking vitamin D plus K2. That's also linked in my bio. That the one I take is from Amazon. I highly recommend it because I got my vitamin D up to 67 the last time it was checked which is incredible. I went from 9 to 67. So I got all the vitamins figured out, what I need to take. My big ones are vitamin D plus K2, and then omega-3, and then there's a whole list. I'll have to post the list below. The third thing, there's a lot of studies out there about the effects of metal in the body. Metal can cause inflammation, and it's important to remove metal from your body. So what's crazy about that statement is that I had so much dental work done when I was younger. I had retainers and braces since I was 7 years old. And then from there, I had permanent retainers put in after that phase. I had permanent retainers put in when I was a senior in high school. From there, at this moment in time, when a part of the story, I had those permanent retainers still in, and I also had mercury fillings, which if you look it up online, mercury fillings are not even a thing anymore because it causes so much metal to get into your system, and that metal causes inflammation. So I just a light bulb went off. I need to get rid of all the metal in my body. That is another step in this process. So I made an appointment with my dentist, and I was able to remove my mercury fillings, and then I also removed my metal retainers. I tried calling my orthodontist office, which has changed names over the years, and they could not tell me. They had my records, but they could not tell me what kind of metal they put in my mouth. Nobody knew. And I had those retainers for 15 years. I got those retainers removed immediately. So I am basically going through a detoxing phase, and this is maybe 6 months after pregnancy. So I cut out dairy and gluten. I added vitamins and supplements. I focused on removing all the metal in my body, which I did. I was successful in that. And then I went a little rogue. Okay. This next part is not medical advice. It is something that you should be doing with a naturopath doctor and or your medical team. I'm going to share with you the things that I did because I believe it's important, but I also do not want anybody to take this information and run with it. Please seek medical advice first. But the next step that I did after a lot of research, the next step that I did after getting all the metal removed from my body was I did a heavy metal detox. On Amazon, I got zeolite, and you mix zeolite with a little bit of water, and you take these little droplets for about a month, and it's supposed to detox your body from heavy metals. So I did that. Then the next step that I read a study, the study is linked below, about how in 100% of patients studied from this one study, they found parasites in the patients. And there's YouTube videos all about it. I dove into that and I was like, what if? Who knows? But what if that was a thing? So I did do a parasite cleanse. My parasite cleanse consisted of a lot of different things. And again, please see a naturopath doctor to figure out which parasite cleanse is best for you. I do recommend doing one. I did it for about a month. I did it for about 2 months, actually. 60 day cleanse of parasites. I will be honest with you, I did not look, nor can I confirm if I had parasites or not, but I went through the process as an extra step in my healing journey to make sure if I had parasites, there would no longer be any in my body. And I'm going to leave it at that, or I can speak to those steps specifically, what I did if you follow me on social media. There's a lot to unravel there. And I do want to say that after this parasite cleanse, I did feel so good. I felt so much better. That was just a step in the process, right? So I'm detoxing. I'm detoxing from metal. I'm detoxing from parasites. I'm detoxing from food that cause me inflammation because I learned which types of food were disrupting my stomach. Then, after all of that, I followed his 21-day bone broth process and solution to healing your stomach. So what that consisted of was a lot of bone broth. I ended up buying the bone broth through that website from Ancient Nutrition. That bone broth is found at Costco and at Fred Meyer. There's a bunch of different businesses that sell it. I really liked the chicken bone broth, and I also liked the chocolate protein bone broth. I put that in my coffee. I did 21 days of bone broth where I just added it to my diet. I wasn't doing just bone broth, but I did add it. And that went really well. Honestly, I was feeling on top of the world. I had so much energy and I felt great and I felt lighter and I started losing the baby weight and everything was looking really good. But in the next episode, this is where things get drastically better. Okay, I'm going to say that. Things get drastically better from here. And it was all because I dove into learning so much about fasting, intermittent fasting, extended fasting, everything. So if you're still listening and you're subscribed to this podcast, please stay tuned because in my next episode, I will be diving into the steps I took to fast and what it did for me and all the amazing things that came out of it. So thank you for listening. Please subscribe. If you've made it this far, there's so much more to uncover here. And I will see you in the next episode.